Justin, you're happily ensconced now on the
Yep.
veldt up in Joburg. I want to start with Ian and his comment that this was our most improved performance of the year. And I want to start with this because, once again, this has been absolutely taken out of context by the mass media here. The poor blokes getting slaughtered. I actually agreed with him on a couple of things, and I hope you agree with me. I thought that defence-wise we had improved because apart from the first try, which was a big bomb, it bounced off Bowden, it could have gone anywhere, and the last try, which was obviously, scattergun rugby at the end there, our defence held. Can we actually celebrate that bit at all?
Look, I think what has been misconstrued is the fact that he was really happy with quite a proportion of the game in terms of the way that they stayed in the fight. Like many teams would have been out of that game by half-time because South Africa were just so impressive. He probably got the wording of what he wanted to say wrong, that, instead of saying there was massive positives to come out of the game but still massive work-ons, to say it was our best performance. Yeah, look, what he is saying is he feels that South Africa are a better quality opposition, which, is no slight by any means on Ireland. But, them at home, they're a formidable beast. They're full of experience. Their bench is outstanding. And the All Blacks stayed in that fight for quite a long period of time, and a lot of it without the ball. So, yeah, look, I think if he had his time again, his choice of words would have been different, but I could kind of get an idea of what direction he was trying to go and put more of a positive spin on it than, we were absolutely annihilated out there. We were actually in the game at times.
Justin Marshall, 81 Test veteran, the All Blacks with us, calling it on Sky Sport and Nelspruit now in Joburg. Okay, so this is my takeaways from the game, and I was watching it with a friend, and she said to me that, and she doesn't know much rugby, Justin, and she said, why does our team go side to side all the time and never go forward? And I thought, in her own naive way, that she'd actually summed up a hell of a lot about the game. We just can't seem to bend that line. We can't seem to get that momentum over and through their tackling.
And that's frustrating because particularly when you know that that's coming, that they are a very aggressive line speed defence orientated team, and because they're so familiar with each other, they don't leave you opportunities where there's a fracture in that line. So when one turns in, I think I said it in commentary, one turns in, two turns in, three turns in, they all go in together, and then you have to execute to perfection to beat them because they're all in rhythm and they've got the same synergy. So yeah, absolutely, that's a big part of the problem, is breaking them down and finding the space, because there is space, and getting the ball there is absolutely paramount, and going lateral is not the way to do that. Look, I've always felt and always sort of had many discussions about attack, and a lot of them are, when you've got aggressive line speed like that, they're coming forward so fast at such velocity and such speed that you need to go through them first. You need to attack that line speed in around the source of the breakdown, make some breaches there, and ironically, if you look back on the game, the three mini line breaks and the big line break that Caleb Clark made were all inside passes. They're all passes where that outside line speed didn't cut the All Blacks off, and they went straight through the middle. Will Jordan got clipped by an ankle tap. So that's where you need to hit them before you then hit the outside channel, because once that breach has happened, they can't get back to come forward fast. So yeah, lateral is playing into their hands. Making sure that you get through the middle first is the key thing. But they would have known that. They've experienced that before, and they know what it's like.
Scrum-wise, this was unusual in that every time anything happened with the scrum, the referee just blew a penalty straight away. There was no resets at all. That's unusual to me for a start. I suppose it's good in that it keeps the game flowing. But our scrum, once again, was just all out of sorts. How and why?
Oh, look, there's no doubt about the fact that was where the heat was going to come. And I certainly know from having done the pre-game when we were doing our statistics that the entire front row of the All Blacks wasn't equivalent to, I think it was Indian Carney's test cap. So we were green. So when you're green and you haven't been in that position before, I'm pretty sure that George Bauer, Samasoni, Tolkiaho, Angus Ta'avale has played the Springboks before, I think, in this country, but those other two haven't. So you're in a cauldron and an environment you've never been in before. So it was a bit of a gamble to throw that front row out there. And it did hurt us early in the test match. I certainly feel that as the game wore on, though, the scrum started to learn, and particularly in the second half, I don't really remember too many penalties being conceded. So, they did learn, they did bring players on that added and made a difference, but it's a massive part of the game when there are scrums in the game. So look, it's fine if you go through a half of rugby and there's a handful of scrums. It's like, cool, okay, we might get a couple of penalties against us, but there's 12, 13, 14 lineouts and we're doing well in that, then it doesn't have an effect. But there were actually quite a few errors in this game, which meant subsequently there was a lot of scrums.
Right.
And you need that platform, you need that launch. And another part of it, Devs, was a lot of those scrum feeds were the Springboks scrum feeds because they're on the back of uncharacteristic but becoming familiar errors that the All Blacks are making, which is inviting the opposition back into the game through set piece, which they clearly didn't want to do throughout that game because it slowed the game down. Yeah,
well, that was one of the things I was going to say. They're absolutely expert at the stoppages. Look, and I'm not going to moan about that because that's how they play. They've always played. They've always sat down. There's water breaks now. Any time that and you said it, they're gassed out there. I think Jeff might have said it. They're gassed out there, and you knew that an injury break was coming. That's just gamesmanship, and they're doing it absolutely brilliantly at the moment. And so you can't complain about that. Physically, though, are we able to compete with them? Because it didn't look it. I mean, they just seem so much physically more powerful, stronger, maybe even better body position than us. Am I seeing something I'm not, or what?
Look, we're not winning the physical battle, particularly at the breakdown at the moment. Man, they were big men, and their commitment levels were impressive, to be honest. Like, you would have seen it on your TV screen. Some of those collisions and the tackles, there were players basically getting their legs catapulted off the ground physically. Like, they weren't illegal tackles, but there was 3, 4, 5 times where some of the All Black carriers were hit by defenders that absolutely jolted them, and that was just because of timing and commitment and aggressiveness and physicality. Look, again, I thought a big problem with the All Blacks in the Irish series was physically they didn't win the breakdowns. The fact that Malcolm Marx, who was out there as a one-man band, who was simply outstanding, they knew that he's good over the ball. They knew that if they gave him opportunities, he's bloody hard to move. You can't get him out of that breakdown area. They still couldn't do that. There were times where cleaners were there, and I think I said it in the commentary at one stage. You could see there's a guy trying to grab his leg and move him, but it's too late.
Yeah, that was Caleb.
Got his hands
I remember that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and that's just not simply having the firepower, but also not having I guess the body position as well. Like, the body positions were off, and look, it's hard for me to say that I feel that an All Black team is physically not competing with the opposition. I don't think it's the fact that we're not strong enough. I just think technically we're all not on the same page. Like, when there's a breach and when there's a genuine line break, we should flood numbers to that breakdown when that player gets tackled and not concede a turnover. But, we did many times where we did something good and then bang, straight away they got a guy over the ball and we couldn't move him. And, there needs to be a commitment level there that they do that. And, I'm not entirely sure we were right on in that zone at the weekend.
Justin Marshall with us on the platform. Justin, does this come down to the coaching? I mean, you knew this question's coming. I mean, I just don't know what other answers are out there. Everyone is pointing at this. Is it that simple? Is it another change of coach going to change this group of players into a team that all of a sudden beats these teams? Or even if a new coach arrives, would that take time? Because I would think it would have to, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely it would. There's a much broader problem within this, and there's a bigger picture scenario here. Look, very nicely we were able to catch up with Fozzie during the week for a beer, and he just wanted to do that with the Sky crew and just say, hey, look, just wanted to have a chat and just give you an idea of where we're at this week. And, he admitted, he said, look, I'm a guy under pressure, and so is the team, and everyone's feeling that. But we're determined. And we know what we need to do at the weekend, and we want to go out there and we want to show how good a team we are. And that was a really positive attitude to have, given the circumstances that the All Blacks are under. But unfortunately, at the moment, everybody is not working in sync. The game plan is faltering slightly. The fact that they knew the high ball was coming is not rocket science to anybody.
No,
that's the way South Africa play. But we should have been working all week on the high ball reception. We got bullied in there, basically.
Yeah.
The kicking accuracy is so much better than ours. Like there were players around our catches all the time because their kicking is so accurate compared to ours. And just a few of those little micro skills are letting us down at the moment. Now, look, at the end of the day, Ian Foster's not out there hitting Aaron Smith's box kick or Bowden Barrett's kicks, but Pollard and Hendrickson, in particular, who came on for Fuck de Klerk, their kicking was so accurate that our receivers are under massive pressure. So, you've got to say, well, look, is it Ian Foster's fault that he's not hitting that high ball high enough when we kick it and giving our chasers opportunities? He's not dropping the ball. He's not throwing it on someone's hip, and Billy LaRue kicks it on the ground and they score under the post. So, yeah, there's a massive lack of confidence, if I was going to say anything, Devs, in this team. That they are trying their bloody hearts out, and you can see it. They are, like, the look on Sam Kane's face, he had to compose himself before he came and took our interview because he was hurting, and he had to take a minute before he got on camera. And I watched him, and I thought, he had to take a minute. He took 3 or 4 deep breaths before he could come and then talk because he was in pain of what had just happened, and he had bloody played his guts out. So, it's really, really hard to criticise when you can see the effort going in, but then you've got to criticise because the execution in lots of areas is not right. It's not All Black-like. It's not the way that we are. It's not in our DNA to be making the errors or to be below par like we are at the moment.
See, I detect in your voice even now, though, that you still have some kind of, well, better than hope there, that you actually still retain a belief, don't you? Because, I mean, most critics are sitting there just carping away and sack this guy, this guy's useless, all of that kind of stuff. But you actually, look, I can feel it in your voice.
Look, I'm very much an optimist when it comes to the All Blacks, and I certainly feel that there are well and truly enough of that squad that are capable of going out there and winning a test match against South Africa at Ellis Park. We've just got to find our confidence levels, and those confidence levels are being massively harmed by the starts that we're having. Like I think I said it to, you won't have heard this, I said it to Supersport. I was on their show for the first 20 minutes, and they said, what do you feel about this game? I said, look, this is a side that's a bit low on confidence but massively capable. So if we don't start well, though, we because of our confidence levels and the way that we can't find our rhythm at the moment, if we're behind in the first quarter, we won't win the test match. And we were, and we didn't. Yeah. And I think if we could get into the game and get a quick try out of nowhere, start well, get them to make an error, and bang, all of a sudden the chest puff up a bit, the heads go up, they don't go down to the ground. This team, if they could find their mojo, could find their way to win a test match because there's enough talent there.
All right, then, we're in Joburg, so, and you know how difficult it is there. Is it the hardest place for the All Blacks to play, mate? Is it?
It's the best place for the All Blacks to play.
Right.
And I was very, very lucky as a young All Black to come here in 1996, and the drive into that stadium. When we drove into that stadium in 1996, I can tell you without word of a lie, you have to drive down the main little entrance area. That's where the players go in. So they don't go into a secret tunnel. You go down the main entrance area where all the crowd goes in. They were on either side of our bus, and they were pushing the bus. So people on the left pushed it, people on the right pushed it. And our bus was rocking from side to side as we were driving into the stadium. And the Vuvuzelas, or whatever they're called, they were yelling Boca, the flags were waving, and they were glaring at us, and they were throwing these little mini oranges. I think they're called Najis or something at us. And you're like, holy shit, we're in a test match here. We're in an environment that is not anything like what we've got in New Zealand. But when you ran out onto that park as an All Black, and the Springboks burst out onto that stadium, I tell you what, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I thought, we're going to make you quiet, and we're going to make you regret you rocked that bus. And, look, it's one of the most hostile venues you can ever play rugby in, but it's one of the most satisfying victories you'll ever get if you can run out onto that stadium and win. It's one of the best things in rugby ever as an All Black.
All right, then finally, what changes? If you have to, if you're the selector, are you making changes this week? Or is it just tweaking changes? Is it wholesale changes? There is so much riding on this match now for everyone involved in that team, right through the coaching panel. And Mark Robinson is sitting there like the Night of the Long Knives with sharpening his, just waiting for a loss here. I mean, that's what it feels like to me. It feels like the guillotine is set, mate, which is so awful because this is an All Black side that unites a country, doesn't divide a country. That's what upsets me at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. And, we do need to unite at the moment, So, look, when it comes to selection, there's obviously two players, both the Barrett boys, that they're going to have to assess. Geordie, after that horrific collision that he had, and then, Bowden, and then Geordie with his ankle. So, they'll have an effect on the selection in the back line. Personally, yes, I think there's too much flatness in the group at the moment. Some of the starting 15 are just feeling the weight of the pressure of what's happening to them. And I think injecting some new faces, but not some massively unfamiliar ones, into both the back line and into the forward pack might just inject a little bit of enthusiasm and maybe just a bit of ambition. Like not to worry about what's in front of you, just to go out and go, I've been given an opportunity, and just go hell for leather and get stuck in, just get stuck into the game. And then you can bring that experience that's been there before, possibly off the bench. So, yeah, I'd like to see him roll the dice a little bit and give some opportunities to some players that I think can open South Africa up. How much do they know about Lester Fainganuku? They've never seen him. They've never played Super Rugby against him. Where does he go? Perhaps he plays centre. How much do they know about Stephen Perifeta? Do they just start Frizzell and go, you know what, mate, get out there and just
smack people,
absolutely berserk, and we'll bring you off after 25 minutes if we have to.
Yeah.
Tupuvai, go out there and get stuck in, mate, and then bring Sam Whitelock on, or, bring Scott Barrett on. Whatever it might be, I think we just need to reinvigorate that side, because the starting team is flat at the moment, and why wouldn't they be? They've lost 3 test matches on the bounce, and that's not healthy. But they can still have a positive effect on the team, but maybe in a different role.